Gators Breakdown episode 80 is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters, and you can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SCC. And the co-host tonight is Bill Sykes. You can find Bill on Twitter at RealBSykes. Bill, we got something different tonight. You know, our first recruit that we're going to let, get on the airwaves here on Gators Breakdown. And you initiated it, but Amari Burney is going to join us. So, thanks for setting that up.
Hey, no problem, man. I've been wanting to make this happen for a while. He's one of my favorite recruits in the class, and in my brief time talking to him, he's a great kid, and I know all our listeners are going to enjoy hearing from him.
For sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as you can hear, Amari Burney is going to join us here on Gators Breakdown. Amari, first of all, thank you so much for doing this. You know, it's something new for us as well. I wanted to extend a big thank you for taking your time and doing this, and just welcome you to Gators Breakdown.
Thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be on the show.
For sure. Thank you very much. Remember, guys, you can find all your Gators Breakdown episodes on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. Just search on those sites to get the links by following Gators Breakdown on Twitter and on Facebook at Gators Breakdown. Also, please remember, when you're on iTunes, rate and review the show. Let everybody know what they're getting with Gators Breakdown. So, Amari, we're just going to throw a few questions at you, and then you can answer them along the way. But everybody remember, he's from Clearwater, Florida, Calvary Christian, 4-star safety there. So first off, just in case people missed it when you committed back on June 1st, why did you commit to Florida? What was the reason for going ahead and committing early and getting the process over with?
Why not Florida? I mean, since my sophomore year, when I wasn't a 4-star, when I wasn't Amari Burney, Florida offered me a scholarship. And the coaches, Coach Mack, he was just telling me from day one that I was going to be a Gator. I really sat there and really thought about it. At first, I was like, Florida, I don't know about that. And then I started seeing them. Coach Matt, he kept getting in my ear. Coach Nuts, they was in my ear. And I really just sat down with my parents and talked about it. And I was like, I got to make this decision. I wanted to make it in, I think, February when I went to the Junior Elite Day. But my mom was like, just think about it and make the day special. So I chose to make it on my grandfather's birthday.
Now, I read a little bit about that, Amari. You said your grandfather has passed, so it was kind of a way to honor his memory. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. And I read the story. You guys released some Gator balloons on the beach to kind of as a way to celebrate that. And is that right?
Yes, sir. Very emotional.
Yeah, I bet it was, buddy. Hey, I want to give our listeners just a little bit of a profile. As you mentioned, Amari is one of the top athletes in the nation. 6'2", 215 pounds, ran a laser-timed 4.48 40-yard dash at the opening finals in Oregon, which is a gathering of all the best athletes in the country, the premier, the best of the best. And everything I've read says that you got better and better as the event went on. And you kind of mentioned how back in the day, you weren't a 4-star, and Coach McElwain had identified you and had come after you. But what is it like being a recruit that kind of blows up on the scene, becomes, I mean, like I told you, right now you're the defensive cornerstone of the 2018 class of the Gators, a national recruit. What is that like, man? What is it like getting all this attention and everybody coming after you?
I'm a humble dude. My parents always say I'm shy. I don't like to speak. So just a lot of people in my face, it was new for me. And then just everywhere I went, people know me. I go to Florida. Everybody's like, oh, that's Amari Burney right there. They want to take pictures. And then at practice, just my teammates, they wasn't treating me any different, but it was at practice. They want to come after me and just, show me up like every other teammate want to do.
Amari, you talking to the coaches, you mentioned Jim McElwain came after you early, and now I'm sure you've got to get along with Randy Shannon, the defensive coordinator for Florida as well. How have the coaches explained to you how you would fit into this Florida defense?
They just told me just come in and compete. Talked to Coach Nuts before I committed. He just said just come in and compete just for a starting position. That's what I'm trying to do. Really, when they first recruited me, it was at receiver. But then, I kind of moved my way back to safety the second time I came to the camp, and that's where they wanted me at right now.
Anything about the DBU moniker that resonates with you about Florida?
Just all the greats that came through Florida. I watch every highlight. Every time somebody tags me on Twitter of just the #1 highlights, I just watch all of them and just try to make my game after them.
Now, is there a particular guy that stands out to you that, watching those tapes, hearing about the guys of the past and watching them on TV in the league, is there one guy maybe out there, or a couple of them that you say, that's the guy that I want to be. I want to follow in his footsteps and then make my own mark?
Just Keenan Neal. He just came through there, so that's a guy that I kind of was watching when I was really looking at Florida and see the way they used him, and then just see him at the Atlanta Falcons right now. So that's like he closer than my time than the people that played when my parents was around. So that's just a guy I look up to.
Makes sense.
Amari, Friday Night Lights, was a couple weeks ago. Explain what was the general feeling going into. We know it ended up being a big event for Florida, but going into the event, what were you looking forward to at Friday Night Lights, going to Gainesville, being around other recruits around the nation?
Just me going back for the first time since I committed. The coach has been talking to me over the phone, but just me going back to see the smiles on their faces and just see all the recruits that the coaches was telling me to recruit, like Richard. Just sitting down with a couple of them, because I know it was a lot of big recruits that was there. So just really sitting down with them and talking to them and just wanting them to come to Florida with me.
It's kind of crazy, man. I mean, you only committed like 2 months ago, but it was 12 commits ago. I mean, half the class has jumped on board. So I guess we're going to give you some credit for that. I know you guys have been, communicating online, and I know there's a lot of recruiting that goes on amongst you guys.
Yes, sir.
What kind of things are they saying out there, the recruits, that is, when you guys communicate now, since this avalanche of commits has happened for Florida? Has the mood changed amongst the recruits?
Everything. Right when we got Matt Corral, I just seen a lot of people, group chat. It was just a lot of different people in there saying they was coming, saying they looking at Florida now just because the quarterback come. Because, I mean, without a quarterback, receivers really don't want to play. So when we got Matt Corral, it was like a lot of 4-star receivers that was like, okay, I want to play with Matt, so we're going to just go there and commit.
Absolutely not. Oh, go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Bill. Finish it. Go ahead.
Well, I'm not going to put you on the spot. I know that there's this, kind of now becoming infamous group chat amongst you guys. A lot of people are saying there's all the elite commits are in there, and those who are soon to commit. And I know you guys need to keep that private, and I respect that. But do we have some, with the offensive class starting to fill up and the eyes turning to defense, do we have some defenders on that group chat as well?
It's a couple. I'm not gonna throw the names out there, but it's a couple.
No, absolutely not.
We kind of looking at to come and just commit.
Good stuff. We'll keep at them.
Amari, going into your senior season, what do you want to work on personally in your game that you want to be able to translate to the college game?
Just my aggressiveness, coming downhill as a safety. People. I grew a lot of weight. I grew taller, so it's just me using that weight as my advantage, just coming down here, tackling running backs and hitting receivers.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the size and the athleticism down. I can understand why you would want to work on that part of your game, but I've seen the tape. You've obviously got some skill in that area already. So I guess at this point, you're just trying to add to it, huh?
Yes, sir.
Hey, and kind of going back to the recruiting thing, you mentioned Coach McElwain and how you had some dialogue with him, and it sounded like that resonated with you. What is he like as a recruiter, just as you're interacting with him?
I mean, he speaks the truth, nothing but the truth. Every time my parents love him, my mom, especially when he was the real first coach to offer me a scholarship in my face instead of just telling my coach and then my coach tell me. So that really stuck with me the whole way through. And then just my mom and my parents, they loved him every time we went up there. I mean, it was just like, can we go see Coach Mack just to sit down with him and listen to what he had to say to us?
Yeah, I heard he cooks a good barbecue.
Yes, sir.
Did he make you a peanut butter and jelly yet?
No, sir, not yet.
We need to get some T-shirts made with his name on it and have a peanut butter jelly sandwich on it.
4-star recruit Amari Burney joining us here on Gators Breakdown. Amari, what have you seen from the Gators defense, recently that makes you excited to go play? Randy Shannon took over the defense, and we saw him in the bowl game against Iowa. Did you look at that game in particular, knowing that Randy Shannon would be your defensive coordinator, and did you want to see how he was using the guys? Of course, a lot of those guys, Tabor, Wilson, May. All those guys that went on to the NFL, but did you see anything from Randy Shannon that that piqued your interest?
Just the best. I really was just sitting down with him talking. He was just like, it doesn't matter what position you play, DB, safety, you just a DB. So he said he played safety, but he needed Chauncey at corner, so he moved him to corner. So he's just saying the best players really going to get on the field and just play DBU for them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Shannon kind of comes from that school where he wants to line up his best athletes against your best athletes and beat you. He likes to keep it simple, and so I can understand why he's saying that, and I can fully understand how he plans to use you in that regard. So that makes a lot of sense. Dave, you got any more? Because I got another one for him.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, man, listen, when you aren't busy with football and recruiting and homework and practice and joining us on podcasts, what do you like to do for fun, man?
Play video games. I mean, everybody at my school got my online name, so people just really just hit me up and be like, let's get on 2K, let's play Madden, and different games like that, because I'm just the type of kid where I don't like I go bowling or something, but other than that, I don't really like to get myself in that much attention or a lot of hype, because it's a lot of things going on in the world right now, so I just like to stay in the house and just play video games.
I hear you, brother. I hear you.
I'm 34 years old, Amari, and I still like to do that as well. So, hey, whatever you can do, while you're at Florida, whatever we can do to get NCAA football back, we need to get going.
Yes, sir. I've been waiting for that. Waiting for that. I mean, I just want Lamar Jackson, all them other different people that I look up to now, just to play the game, and then I can create my player for Road to Glory.
There we go. Yeah. Hear this EA Sports. The players want it. The players want it. Something that's kind of in the spotlight, for Florida's, they've fell behind in years in the facilities and all that. When you were being recruited, the McElwain and the administration share for you the facilities that Florida's building in the coming years?
They showed me a couple of things, but I really wasn't there. They say everybody got the same facilities. Some people gonna have better facilities in Florida, so they really wasn't talking to me about the facilities. They're just talking to me about just me being a player for the Florida Gators.
Gotcha.
Oh, hey, I got one, and I don't know if you know this or if you're allowed to share it or not, but do you think there's a possibility we could see a special uniform for Michigan?
Ooh. I mean, it's a possibility. I really don't know none of that information.
Anything's possible, right?
Yes, sir.
Mark, that did signal a question for me. What is your favorite Gator uniform combination? Because there's a brass out there that don't like the white helmets because they're not traditional. There's people who want to stick with the orange helmets. Do you like the blue jersey? The different colored pants. If you were a team captain and Jim McElwain said, "All right, you're picking the uniform from this week," what you picking?
And hey, wait a minute now. Just be careful with this, because one day it's going to be on you. So,
I'm gonna have to go all white.
There you go.
With the white helmets, it's just a good look for them, and then they make everybody look smaller in the white. For me, in high school, I just love the all white uniforms.
I did too. I mean, I know they went to Tennessee and lost in them, but that white helmet, white jersey, white pants, that was probably the best looking combo I've seen the Gators. And I'm a big fan of the white helmet, as you can see. But it's
yes, sir.
That's what I like. So.
That's
Bill,
good stuff, man.
You got anything else, Bill?
That's it, man. Is there anything else you'd like to share with Gator Nation, Amari?
Just go all bite 18. Just look forward to a lot of more recruits committing to the Gators.
Well, we are, buddy. We're glad you're part of the class, man. I'm looking forward to watching you, and we'll keep in touch. And if there's anything we do to help you, we'll do it.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us here on Gators Breakdown, Amari.
Thank you for having me.
No problem.
All right, bud. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
All right, Amari Burney joining us here on Gators Breakdown. Bill, that was some good stuff, man. Yeah,
man. I just want to convey to our listeners the way he talks on here. He is just yes, sir, no, sir.
Yep.
Really nice young man. And he's also 6'2", 215, runs a 4.48 40. And when you put quality human being and those kind of physical attributes, you can expect success. I mean, I think he's got support around him. And I think he's going to come in here and do some really big things at one position or another for the Gators.
Yeah, and I like what he said about Jim McElwain's recruiting. He was a recruit that McElwain went after early, identified early. And it was kind of interesting. He said they started off as a wide receiver, and then as the more, I guess, tape they got on him, more film they got on him, offered him as a safety and started working him out there. So, we talked about this recruiting, and we talked about Jim McElwain recruiting at length, and it seems to be, with Burney, it seems to be the relationship. It really was the relationship that he built with his family and him, to get him to become a Gator.
Yeah, and we've seen over and over in the SEC, the flashy big coach hires that come in and have the instant success, like Saban and Meyer and those guys. And I'll admit I've been skeptical of the slow build approach from McElwain. But at the same time, I think people know that I've acknowledged the adversity that was beyond his control that he's had to overcome. But some of these success stories are starting to lend credence to the idea that he's been kind of planting long-term roots, building relationships, and it's starting to gain traction. I mean, certainly this whole explosion we've seen is another animal. But between Burney and some other things we've seen lately, I think there's some serious vindication going on for Jim McElwain's recruiting.
For sure. I think Florida got them a good one there, and Burney. And like you said, I'm ready to see that speed and that size and go lay the wood. He mentioned Keanu Neal was the Gator he looked up to, and it was basically, if you wanted him to be, he was another linebacker. So maybe you're probably looking at Burney, maybe move it up in the box if the coaches want him to be there. It looks like he can make the move and be there.
Yeah, and think about this. I know that we just glossed over this idea that, he used to be a wide receiver, but I want you to think about something. This is a kid who, I think he had about, at least 10 or 15 catches a year. Or excuse me, that's not right. He had more than that. I mean, he's put up hundreds of yards, put up 400 yards as a sophomore with 20 receptions as a wide receiver. Okay, so you're putting a guy back there that can catch the ball in the secondary. And when you put that with 4.4 speed and that kind of frame, this is a guy that can do some damage with the ball in his hands, as well as come up and strike in the box, as well as, roam hopefully sideline to sideline. And man, the sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, unless why he was why he's really a highly rated recruit. It was like pretty much you can put him anywhere, from second level to third level in the defense, and you got a player that can play along on both levels. That's
right. And right now, the composite score on Amari Burney on 24/7 Sports is that he's the number 11 safety prospect in the country, number 118 nationally, with a 94 grade, 4 stars, and a chance to move up. He did well at the opening. I mean, like a few of the Gator commits, he's not done yet.
Not for sure. And there we go. Talking about recruiting, Bill, yesterday on Sunday, running back Damian Pierce commits to the Gators, and Steve Wiltfong recruited by Juwan. This is a quote from him on 24/7 Sports. Steve Wiltfong, that's where he writes all his good stuff there. So he mentions he recruited by Juwan Sider as a junior, 5'11", 205-pound Pierce averaged nearly 7 yards per carry and gaining 1,686 yards and scoring 20 touchdowns. The season before, he emerged as a national name to know, gaining 2,060 yards and finding the end zone 33 times for Bainbridge High. And here's the analysis of his game. He has great balance, good vision, hits the hole hard, and has the quickness and feet to dart away from tacklers that could have had him bottled up behind the line of scrimmage. With a downhill style, Pierce plants that foot and goes. He is a tackle breaker, stiff arm using physical player that doles out more punishment than he is given. So, it seems like it's another in the mold of Jordan Scarlett, breaking tackles type of running back that Jim McElwain has secured here.
Yeah, the two things that stuck out to me were he's punishing and he's just he's a north-south runner. He's the kind of guy that, he does have some quicks. He's got some feet. He's got great balance and body control, but he's not like he's not going to sit back and dance. I mean, he's falling forward. He's hitting people, driving through them, making them pay the price to tackle him. He might not have breakaway speed, but he's the kind of guy that an offense can just ride to victory. Excellent pickup here by Jim McElwain. Excellent compliment to Iverson Clement, who is more of a little more of a jitterbug back there. Not a small back by any means, but they have just such a great complementary skill set. Whereas Clement is going to maybe make a few more people miss, and Pierce is going to make a few more people pay.
Right, and what I liked about him, and this is the one part of the offense I'm ready to see take off from Jim McElwain. From his time at Alabama, and we saw it, it was the perfect play call. You had to call it at the right time, and you had to have the right personnel. And I think Jim McElwain's getting that personnel. But the running back screen game, hasn't been the level of what of course, the whole offense hasn't, but that was one staple in the Jim McElwain offense at Alabama where he was able to call that play at the perfect time and make something happen. And you go back and look at Pierce's tape, he is used a lot in the running back screen game and used a lot out of the backfield catching the ball. So I think, if this offensive line comes around to get the recruits that we are thinking about Florida getting, and him coming in as well, I really think you could see that staple of that Jim McElwain offense, the running back screen game, come into play with him.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about these screen games. A lot of times in those situations, you got a guy out there on the perimeter and he's in space. He has a guy to beat. And this is a guy that can make the guy miss, but he can also run right through it. And I don't want to be the cornerback that's out there trying to tackle this kid high. I mean, he's coming in right now. He's 5'11", 205. I mean, this is a big bruising running back. Really, man, I tell you what really gets me excited about this. This was a position that I was a little uncertain about, saying, okay, who are they going to really land here? And a kid out of Georgia that Auburn wants, that is, traditionally not been a position that Florida has dominated at in recent years.
And he was a one-time Alabama commit.
Right. This is them challenging traditional running back, schools. And I know that's kind of weird. I know Florida's had some great success with Gillislee and some of these other running backs of late. And certainly in longer term history, Florida's got tremendous success with running backs. But, there was a run there where Florida was having a hard time getting these types of kids. And for McElwain to go into Georgia, challenge Auburn, take a former Alabama commit away and secure him when he's already got another running back on board. Again, this is another signal to me that the Gator recruiting footprint is growing rapidly and growing in tangible ways. This is not a kid, I think, that was coming to Florida in some years of recent past.
Right. And one more guy we haven't get a chance to talk about because he committed after our podcast last week. The saga of Jacob Copeland finally ended with his video. Big time wide receiver commit. Florida finally reeled in. He was the first commit, I believe, Jim McElwain identified when he came in and got the job. He was on Jacob Copeland from the get-go. I remember Copeland last year when last recruiting cycle when James Robinson got into Florida. I think that resonated with him very well. I think he's been a McElwain fan the whole time as well. And Bill, this is a big time wide receiver commit for the Gators. And I tell you what, they're killing it with Jamari Chase and now Copeland. You've got two big-time receivers that you're going to be able to build your program around with Matt Corral in this class. I mean, this is a guy who can operate after the catch. He catches the ball. He catches basically everything thrown around him. You might see him maybe go up and high point the ball a little bit more when you go back and watch this film. But after the catch, this is where I really think this guy excels.
Yeah, man. Copeland is a monster with the ball in his hands. He's the guy of the group of wide receivers I got now that I like the best with the ball in his hands. And you look at the complementary skill sets. I'm going to use that term again. Jamar Chase is the guy that explodes out of his breaks. I think he's going to be tremendous at getting separation. And then you've got maybe Schwartz coming on board who, I think it was Quincy Wilson's dad today said that he may be the fastest football player in America at any level right now. Ran a 10-1-5-40, or excuse me, 10-1-5-100. And that's Joey's 40, the 10-1-5. But and then, man, you're bringing in a group here with length and speed. I am so excited about what's about to happen here. And then to pair them with the quarterback they've got and the running backs, the offensive class is looking so good right now. Right.
You mentioned two good running backs in Clement and Pierce, and now Copeland and Chase and Corral on the offensive side of the ball. As we mentioned, bring some offensive linemen in and get the defense, a couple commits there along the way. But this class is really, really setting up to be a special one, and we mentioned top 10, top 5, right now they're definitely aiming for a top 5 or higher class.
Yeah, and again, it's going to start on the lines in the trenches at this point. Or not start, but it needs to finish there. They've got the board stacked up at offensive line. You got William Barnes, Richard Garage, you got Nicholas Petit-Frere, and a few others. They have a chance to land 3 more 4-star offensive linemen there, and it just be a tremendous class. On the defensive side, I wouldn't be shocked if Malcolm Lamar turned around and looked their way towards the end. I mean, Oregon's a long way away. It wouldn't shock me if the 4-star combo lineman I believe he's out of the Tampa area, kind of looked their way. And, they're in on a few other defensive tackles like Silvera that we talked about. I believe it was last week out of American Heritage, and some big-time DBs.
Yeah, a lot of inklings, a lot of crystal balls in for Chatfield flipping from Ohio State. So.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so, I mean, the pieces are there. It's a little lopsided towards the offense right now, but, with Burney and these kids' ears and with Corral and those other offensive players, they'll find their defenders to come with them. They need to, but I believe they will.
For sure. So that's all for recruiting on this episode here at Gators Breakdown. And of course, we have to move towards fall camp. We had our fall preview with Thomas Goldcamp last week. He joined me to break down what will you need to look for, going into fall camp. So of course, Bill, we know first foremost for Florida, it starts at quarterback, and it was like Florida right now. People don't cut my head off or anything. It looks to be a three-headed monster right now with Felipe Franks, Malik Zaire, and yes, Luke Del Rio. So don't throw away Del Rio yet. McElwain even mentioned these first few practices of camps, you're going to see Luke Del Rio compete for the starting job based on what he did last year. And Thomas Goldcamp had an article he published with Luke Del Rio, and even before, and this coming from quote Thomas Goldcamp, even before Del Rio suffered an MCL sprain late against North Texas that forced him to miss those 3 games last year, he injured his throwing shoulder badly on the 3rd play of that game as well. I don't think any of us really knew that. Going back to that North Texas game, and a quote from Del Rio, it's funny they say I don't have a strong arm. I was playing with a grade 3 AC joint sprain. Jimmy Garoppolo stopped playing with a grade 1. So he says in the Arkansas game, it got to the point where I couldn't even lift my arm. So people didn't really realize how hurt I was. I understand the frustration with my performance. I didn't play well, but I was injured. Probably shouldn't have played the Arkansas game. I did. So even Jim McElwain has come out and said he shouldn't have played that Arkansas game. So Bill, are we getting a little bit ahead of ourselves? Is Del Rio a threat to win the job from Felipe Franks and Malik Zaire?
Oh, don't make me answer this.
Pitchforks. Okay,
first of all, let me just say this. We are not going to know until the first snap at Michigan.
Nor should we.
Right. Jim McElwain is not the kind of coach that's going to go out there and tell you everything or anything. He understands how important this game is. If he detects a competitive advantage, which is our official show buzzword or buzz term, he's going to sit on it. And right now, I think he loves the idea that Harbaugh is going to have to prepare for Del Rio and for Zaire's read option and for Franks and what they bring to the table. And they're probably scrambling to find tape on all 3 of these guys and break it all down. And it's more work for them to do, something more for them to prepare for. Is Del Rio a threat? I don't think he'll be the guy. But, yeah, the guy's been under McElwain's system for a few years now. He's certainly more familiar and has more experience both in practice and on the field than the other 2. So, certainly, he's going to be a threat. And if Del Rio really was hampered to that extent by the shoulder last season, and McElwain obviously has a better understanding of what's really going on with that arm and what Del Rio is really capable of, then sure, he could be a threat. Having said that, my personal prediction is that either Franks is going to take a big step forward and take command of the job, which would not be unexpected, or Zaire will probably be there because I do really like what he brings to the table as a dual threat. But I wouldn't be shocked, and I'm not putting money against the idea of Del Rio being the starter versus Michigan or at some other point in the season.
I think the one commentary that I don't like about it is if he does win the job, people are automatically assuming Jim McElwain's not doing the right thing. And you would have to think, after seeing what Del Rio did last year, going through a competition with Felipe Franks and Malik Zaire, if he was to win the job, would that lead? It seems like everybody would think, all 3 quarterbacks are no good, instead of Luke Del Rio beating 2 other good quarterbacks.
Yeah, and it is plausible that Del Rio takes a step forward. He's an upperclassman now. He's experienced, and is it what we want as fans? No, we love the idea, the narrative that McElwain goes and recruits his guy, handpicks him, brings him in, develops him, and he takes a step forward. And that's why there was so much consternation when Zaire came in. The grad transfer thing has kind of worn out its welcome with Florida fans because there has been so much futility with the offense with those guys at the helm. But it is what it is, and every year is different. Every team is different. Every story is different. So you can't fully write off the possibility that Del Rio comes out and turns into a great quarterback. I still wouldn't bet on him being the guy, though.
Yeah, same here. That's what we should probably get out of the way. If we neither one of us are predicting Del Rio, and Bill said it. I'm going to say it too. Not predicting Del Rio wins the job, but it is out there. The thought is out there. And if he was more injured last year than let on, then maybe he wasn't as bad as he looked. So, Bill, before we move on from quarterbacks, I saw a video Florida put out last week. I think it was Friday, of Malik Zaire, taking a broken play. I don't think it was a design run, and head for the pylon and scored a touchdown on probably looked like about a 15 to 20 yard run. And even some players, in post practice interviews, have said that they have to account for his legs, and the offensive linemen have said it helps them. They don't have to worry about it as much. He can escape the pocket. I believe it was Kylan Johnson who said as well, it tests the defense. It gets them out of their lanes, or if they are out of their lanes, it really, he makes them pay for it. So, that we know that's the element Malik Zaire brings, and now we're hearing it, we're seeing it. But in these open portions of practice that the media gets to see, it's very set up to drop back pass, drop back, 3, 5 step, 7 step drop, go through the route tree. You don't necessarily, even in the fastball period, you don't necessarily really get to see a quarterback take off. So, going by what some of the players have said and the little bit of highlights Florida's putting out, it does seem Malik Zaire's legs are already making an impact.
Yeah, and I don't think this guy is Vince Young, but he doesn't have to be. You don't have to have somebody back there that has world-class speed and that's going to run 80 yards with the ball, or you don't have to be a triple option, but just taking it when it's there. Yes, the read option package is great, but on those busted plays, they're going to happen. And look, there's going to be times when the opportunity for a guy with any kind of quicks can get a first down. And that kind of thing adds up over the course of the season. I'm just hoping he can, hit those routes that he's throwing, the ones that McElwain wants to run. He can run his system and be functional in the passing game. And then that ability to run becomes a complement rather than basically the majority of the substance of his game like we have with Harris. He needs to be a passer first and runner second.
Yeah, but design runs need to be in the playbook.
Yeah, they do.
Why bring him in if you're not? Yep.
Yeah. If he can do it, and you're not taking advantage of that, then that's a waste. And so I believe that will help this ball team this year if he's the starter.
Yeah, for sure. And that's not to throw away anything Felipe Franks has done. By all reports, he may have been the best overall looking quarterback in the first few open portions of practice there. He kind of struggled in the spring with the deep corner route. The reports are that he's hitting that with more consistency. So we'll see what Felipe Franks can do. Believe it's still going to be a Frank Zaire battle when it's all said and done. And as we said, I don't think you'll see McElwain announce a starter before the Michigan game. There's no need to really. You hold all the cards, you hold all the secrecy here, and like Bill said, in making Michigan prepare for multiple quarterbacks. And another player they may have to prepare for was in question for a little while was James Robinson, wide receiver. Made his debut Friday. I believe it was Friday. And so he is enrolled. He's going to be at Florida, and he'll be going through some fall camp.
Man, I'm excited about this kid. And I know he's had his troubles, and I know everybody's pulling for him to kind of, get that in the rearview mirror. And it looks like maybe he has, 6'4", 205 pounds, such good body control with the ball in his hands for a player that size. I think this kid can be a Cornelius Ingram type red zone threat down the road.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. I love that comparison, but right now as a freshman, I think his impact with how deep Florida is at wide receiver, red zone right away is the threat I think he brings right to the table.
Yeah, listen, this kid, he can post people up and drive them out of the box. He is a guy that is going to be able to use his size and strength and athleticism to create some separation in the red zone. That's, I think, where you'll see him if you see him this year. But, at that size, if he has the will to block in the running game, that could be a big determining factor too. If he's willing to go out there and drive people off the ball, he could get some playing time even with this stacked roster, because there's not too many kids that have his size on this roster right now. I mean, I believe Tyreek Cleveland's only 6'2". 6'4", 205 is a big old wide receiver, especially for a freshman. And to do what he can do with the ball in his hands, I think he could earn some snaps and earn some touches right away if things go well. He is starting from behind everybody because I don't think he's had the same participation while he's been waiting. So It might be towards the end of the season if we see him, if at all. Either way, maybe it wouldn't be a bad thing if he did take a redshirt year anyway to kind of go ahead and solidify, school. I know he's had some troubles in the past to kind of just get in the groove of things.
Yeah, but if not, maybe he is a red zone threat. You got 2 or 3 plays that you go into the season with that he can be the main guy, the A receiver there and at the top of the food chain in the red zone. And maybe there are 2 or 3 plays he nails, he gets down, and that's what his job is until he figures the offense out.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think the guy could have been a big time safety prospect. It's just that he catches really well, and so why not put the ball in his hands on offense? So, yeah, man, total stud. He's got to, keep at it.
Speaking of safety, Bill used Jim McElwain today in his press conference, post-practice press conference. The 4 best DBs are going to be on the field. And last week at Media Day, Jim McElwain or Randy Shannon said, I believe it was Jim McElwain, though, who said Chauncey Gardner is going to start at cornerback. The Gators start practice the next day. Chauncey Gardner's at safety. So, it didn't take one day for
I told you, don't listen to what Mac says.
So, from the starting secondary, Duke Dawson at 1 cornerback spot, Joseph Putu at 1 cornerback spot, Marco Wilson at nickelback, and you have Nick Washington and Chauncey Gardner at safety, not at corner. So, one day removed from what Jim McElwain said last week at Media Day, and Chauncey Gardner's at safety instead of cornerback. But I do love the quote, and I thought Amari Burney, when we interviewed him just a few minutes ago, said the same thing. Randy Shannon told him the 4 best DBs are going to be on the field, and it looks like that's what Florida's doing right here.
Yeah, it does. And listen, it's early and there's a lot of, smoke and mirrors going on. Yep. And it's hard when you have those couple of open practices to get a read on anything.
There you go. I was about to say I should have prefaced this before. This is only going by open portions of practice and what we get to hear and see coming out of camp. There's about an hour and a half with the media doesn't get to see. So,
but based on what Jim McElwain told me last night, I'm just kidding. No, listen, yeah, Gardner is going to, I'm sure, get reps split between corner and safety through fall camp until they find the combination that works. I think the biggest thing that tells us is that we've got some talent at safety. And Deshaun Davis has had a few highlights posted. People keep quietly whispering about Brad Stewart. Yep. Same thing about Jawan Taylor. People like him. So I think they're probably feeling at least okay about where they are at safety and probably at least okay where they're at cornerback. Marco Wilson already drawing the comments we totally expected. Oh, he came in ready to play. Yep. Well, of course he did. Look who it is.
We said he would.
Right. So I personally, I think they're in a pretty good spot, all things considered. Now, is it favorable to lose Marcel Harris and to lose all the talent they did? Absolutely not. Yeah. I still think they take a step back, and I know people are going to hate me for that, but they are in a pretty good position, all things considered. I think they've got a lot of talent at safety and corner. We'll just have to kind of see where they find the right mix. And again, we won't know until Michigan.
Yeah, and I think one advantage they have here is you start the season with Michigan's not going to throw the ball over the field, or they shouldn't. Tennessee's going to be breaking in a new quarterback. You have the beginning of the season, you have, of course it's tough with Michigan and Tennessee, but it's not like you're facing, Missouri. And now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Missouri is going to be the toughest team in the world, but they bring a potent passing attack, and they're not really, they would be a team that would test the secondary right away. Florida's not really going to get that, until later in the season. So by the time the meat of the schedule rolls around, you would hope if it rolls out like this with a lot of young guys playing, that's when they get their feet under them and they're ready for when they play those, the South Carolina and Bentley and those receivers that the South Carolina brings there. And then, like I said, Missouri, Kentucky's getting a better at passing the ball just a little bit. But, I don't think you'll really see a big test until later in the season.
Yeah, and we talked about that a little bit with Silk when he was on. And they may not run a lot of nickel if they don't have to, early in the year. I mean, Shannon may feel better off with 3 linebackers on the field, because if you are in that look, well, then suddenly you've got Gardner on the field who looks ready to carry the DBU banner. Same thing with Duke Dawson. Heck, Nick Washington's close to that.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 out of 4 would be seasoned veterans with a heck of a lot of talent, and all you got to do is find one guy, whether it would be with a upperclassman that maybe doesn't have the highest ceiling like Putu, or maybe a young freshman like Stewart, like Marco Wilson. That's not a bad spot to be. The question is, can you put the same level of talent on the field at linebacker in doing so, or do you have a drop-off? And that's where the development of guys like Jeremiah Moon comes into play, and Reese and Voshon Joseph.
Yeah, and McElwain on Putu today said you can see that year of learning. He's done a really good job studying and what he needs to do. And then Bill, we're on the 24/7 Alligator Alley message boards, and there seems to be a faction of don't sleep on Putu people out there. So it's kind of become a running joke a little bit. But when he spurned Arkansas for Florida, people were excited about him coming in to there. So it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Putu starting the opposite side of Duke Dawson.
Yeah, and one of the other things we've talked about is, what is Shannon going to do? I mean, I kind of think he's going to man these guys up and play right in the face of the receivers a lot, but he may not ask that of a guy like Putu as much. And depending on the scheme, he's got the frame to be very, very good, in the physical tools. So if he can catch up on the mental aspect of the game and learning the playbooks and everything, he might have a decent season.
For sure, for sure. Bill, this is something I know you were excited for. The size of the players coming in, the freshmen. There were pictures coming out of Kadeem Telford and Elijah Conliffe and Daryl Slayton. And then one I caught today was Stone Forsythe. It was kind of surprising. 6'7", 329 listed. Redshirt freshman there for Stone Forsythe. So, Bill, that's just one I pointed out, but, kind of one guy that kind of been pushed under the radar a little bit. But once you on Twitter started sharing it around a little bit and you saw his size, as I mentioned, 6'7", 329, Florida's doing something right, and the guys are bringing in size-wise. And, of course, you can't overlook the weight room gains in the offseason.
Yeah, and this is important. Like you mentioned, I'm kind of excited about this because we've been speculating a lot, like who's going to back up at defensive tackle, and which of these defensive linemen are going to slim down or bulk up and kind of fill in these gaps, and where is it all going to settle? And there was a lot to be gleaned from this. I was kind of looking over the roster, like Antonius Clayton. He's kind of my pick on the defense for a guy that I think he's going to be very, very good this year and really have a breakout year. He came to Florida and had gotten sick and went down to 215 pounds coming in. He's 6'2", but he's a defensive end, and that obviously wasn't going to cut it in the SEC. He put on about 20 or 25 pounds of that back, but it was kind of a dirty gain and wasn't really like eating right, and his body couldn't handle it, and so he kind of struggled a little bit as a freshman. He's really embraced the nutrition program there and really bought in and is hitting the weights hard and working out. He is coming in, and this was verified, 6'2", 258 as of a week ago. This kid is going to be a monster. Say about the same size there, Ja'Kai Polite. Now, this is relevant because we're hearing some things. Maybe he was trying to gain up to 280, 290. Well, it looks like maybe he's slimmed down. He's coming in on the roster at 6'2", 260. So he may not be the guy that actually fills in on the inside as much. Now, I think, if they do decide to go on 3rd and long, with a NASCAR or whatever you call it, with sliding ends inside, then sure, maybe. But I think that might come from somewhere else. Along those same lines, CeCe Jefferson, who at one time was playing around, I think, 6'1", 270, he's listed this year at 6'1", 242.
Yeah, that's the one I was ready for you to get to. And it seems like, you may slide him inside now, and it may be because of, bull strength and not really for his size now. But, it may look like he is definitely going to stick more to the outside with that size.
Yeah, and it may be interesting. They may have to scheme to put him in good positions to rush the passer. I think he's going to be a guy that shines on those downs, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they use him. The guy that I think is intriguing is Zach Carter. He's a freshman that really wasn't talked about in the group of defensive linemen, but he came in at 6'4", 270, listed as a defensive end. But remember, this is a freshman, and he's got a much bigger frame as a guy that could bulk up and slide inside. The thing is, if we're going to talk defensive tackles, the 3 they brought in as freshmen, Daryl Slayton, Elijah Conliffe, and Kyrie Campbell, are basically a Happy Meal short of 1,000 pounds combined.
Chicken nugget or cheeseburger?
I'm telling you, throw an extra sauce packet in there, it's over 1,000 pounds. The Daryl Slayton is 6'4", 358. Elijah Conliffe, 6'4", 317, and the runt of the litter, Kyrie Campbell, is 6'3", 305. And Campbell might be the guy that, wins the lion's share of the backup minutes at this point because he's got a spring under his belt. But, man, and I just want to remind you, that position, they lost like all their commits last year at one point. We're like, what do we do now? And they went out and like replaced all the guys they lost with better defensive tackles. What a tremendous job that was. So that position is certainly young. The depth is going to be questionable only because of the youth this year, but is looking up for the future.
Yeah, and one guy that his name got thrown out there for defensive tackle today was Luke Ankrum at practice today. They say he was making some plays out there today, so he'll be one name to keep an eye on out there. So let's move to the offensive line, Bill, before we move on, or before we wrap up here. I must have missed this somewhere over the weekend, and it came out today. Martez Ivy was injured, and they said swelling, and I heard it's either the knee or the ankle. Didn't ever really get clarification on that. But Fred Johnson getting guard and tackle reps. McElwain mentioned young guys and old guys working together, but he did say with the injury to Martez Ivy, nothing major there. He'll probably be back at practice tomorrow. But we not secret message. Wow, let me listen to that. We direct message each other, kind of talking about this when we were preparing for the show. This is definitely one guy they can't miss out there at left tackle. It doesn't seem to be anything major, but it did seem Fred Johnson did start last year at right tackle before they moved him inside. And then Taylor took over at right tackle. But it looks like, Fred Johnson may be the guy they move around a little bit. If something happens, he's the guy they'll move around.
Yeah, I actually read that Juwan Taylor went over to left tackle and that Tyler Jordan slid out right. And
that was the one depth chart, I guess, if you want to call it. That's the one I saw too. But then McElwain mentioned Fred Johnson was getting moved around as well. So. Yeah,
and Fred Johnson's been a guy that he's kind of had a little bit of a difficult time finding a home between guard and tackle because, his frame would be better served at tackle because he has such a long frame, but he's found a home inside. So that makes a lot of sense. I think Jordan is just their utility guy. He's kind of like their Drew Miller. A guy that can play just about anywhere on the line. He's got a veteran experience for them now, but they really can't afford to take many hits at tackle. They certainly can't afford to lose Ivy long term. I mean, not that God forbid any of these guys were to get hurt, but they might be able to better absorb a blow inside because they do have Johnson, Hagee, and Jordan, but outside they gets really young, really fast.
Yeah, for sure. And that's depth, as you mentioned. And I think we like the starting five, and I think we mentioned it with Cole Kubick a little bit too. But one guy goes down, you might be scrambling a little bit, especially at tackle there. So,
yeah. Can I make two quick notes about this offensive line?
Yeah.
All right. First of all, Juwan Taylor. I want to kind of go back to the weights for a minute. Juwan Taylor's listed at 6'5", 334. This guy just keeps getting in better shape. And as time goes on, just looking back at this as a kid that almost couldn't play college ball, at least at Florida, because he was just so overweight and took upon himself, took the initiative and just slimmed up, kind of to the line that McElwain drew for him, said, you got to get to here if you want the scholarship, did it on his own. And he keeps coming in better and better shape. This guy, I just think the sky's the limit for him. I'm not sure if he's, going to be successful at left tackle versus right. I don't think it matters. I think he can play either side at this point.
I would probably agree with you there. And yeah, I do.
And then one other thing, I want to go on record now. Brett Hagee is my pick. I think the safest pick. If he can stay healthy and if he can hold on to that job, I believe he might be the safest pick to make a freshman all-SEC team for Florida this year. I think he's going to be really good, at least good for a freshman, but I think he's going to be very good for them.
For sure. So it may have to be a bunch of LSU guys because I read some reports there. They're dropping offensive linemen like flies over there in the Bayou. So you're probably looking at some freshmen going, playing along their offensive line too.
After what Florida fans have been through and what Florida team's been through with offensive line injuries and getting thin.
Hey, welcome to Florida 2 years ago.
Yeah, no sympathy.
None whatsoever. No, after last year, no more sympathy for LSU anyway. I don't care what it is.
Yeah, that's right.
Bill, anything else before we wrap up here, man?
No, I'm just really excited to see how things go this week, and I'm sure we'll have about 8 more commitments. And
Florida will be done in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I hope you didn't make a big plan for a celebration on National Signing Day because It's going to be boring.
Well, maybe the December signing day would be our big
that's right.
celebration.
And that's something we'll talk about going forward. Hopefully they can lock down the class that day.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right. Remember, guys, Amari Burney joined us here earlier. So, big thanks to him, our first recruit that we've gotten to talk to here on Gators Breakdown. So I think that went well, Bill. So once again, thanks for reaching out to him and setting that up.
No problem, man. We'll hopefully have more coming.
For sure, for sure. So for Amari, who joined us earlier, Bill Sykes. You can find Bill on Twitter at RealBSykes. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Thanks for listening to this episode of Gators Breakdown.